if your retirement can survive this, it can survive probably anything. This is part 4 of our series on looking at the Great Depression and then backing it up with the inflation of the late 60s to the 70s into the beginning of the Reagan-Volcker whipping inflation now, the win, which they actually ended up succeeding on. So let's dive into this, because this is this may or may not give you some peace of mind, actually. I think it does, frankly. All right, so let's remember. We're going to start in 1929. All right, so before the start of the Great Deflation / Depressionary era was actually in 1927. And you can see here, in 1927, we actually had positive returns, even though we had 2 years of deflation. Would that be the same as what we're going through now? I have no idea. But that's what happened in 1927. Come here, buddy. 1928. So we're going to start, though, in 1929, the dastardly sequence of return risks that everyone is so scared of, and rightly so, I might add. But then we're going to go from 1929 to 1973. So 1929, 1930, 1931, 1932, 1973, and 1974. Never before in the history of the markets have we seen anything like what we're showing you here, ever. It has never happened. So we're going all the way for 6 straight consecutive years of significant down. We have, let's say, 9.5, 23, 44, 6, 15, 27. Then we go up, and then we go down again. So in the first, what's that, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. 9 years, 7 of them were down, and 2 of them were up. So we're 2 for 7, 2 and 7 in terms of win-loss record. Now we're going to say we're not getting any yield either on the 10-year Treasury because it's deflation. Because I want to use real numbers, and real numbers are what we're dealing with now. The 10-year Treasury right now is at 60 basis points, which is 0.6 of a 1% of a return. Let's just double check that to make sure. Yeah, 0.613. So essentially, I'm saying we're going to extrapolate today's yields on the 10-year Treasury to what we had during the Great Depression, which was deflationary, even though back during the Great Depression, we didn't have 0.61% 10-year Treasury. We had 3.5. So we're using the worst case scenario of stocks with where we are today, even worse a little bit, than where we are in bonds. Now we're going to go up until 1973, and we're still going to use the 10-year Treasury, all right? And there's a reason for that. I'm going to show you. Now, after 10 years of this, we're going to buy a new 10-year Treasury. And the average of this time of the this whole period from 73 to 82 is about 9.21. So in this case, because we're dealing with inflation, in fact, you can see my comment right here. Average 10-year yield from 1973 to 1983 was 9.21. So we're going to use that and say we are buying a 10-year Treasury in 1979 to give us the 10-year forward returns that we're going to get. Hope that makes sense. So that's what we're going to do. So we're saying we're buying a 10-year Treasury today. It doesn't pay anything. We're not going to get any interest whatsoever. But because there is deflation in the cost of living, that is actually adding to our wealth. Because if we have $1 and the value of $1 is growing, even if we're not making a return, our value of our dollar, our purchasing power is growing. 10 years later, we're going to buy a 10-year Treasury at whatever the yield is at that point. All right, you ready? So let's go into this. So we have $100,000 in the S&P 500. We have $100,000 in the 10-year Treasury. We're taking 5% a year out, adjusting with inflation. And after we're getting killed. And again, we're only taking money out of the stocks when the stocks are in the black. When they're in the red, we're not touching it. So if they're in the black, we're taking out. When they're in the red, we're taking out of cash. Hope that makes sense. So in the first 6 years, we're not taking anything at all from stocks. Nothing. Which means because we're down 78%. We lost 78% of our value. So $100,000 is now worth $23,000. Ugly. Now, because we're taking the money from the cash, our cash bucket at the end of 1974 is worth $45,000. So we've needed to take, let's see, we needed to take, how much did we take out here? Let's do this, equals sum these guys up. We've taken $54,000 out of a $200,000 portfolio, and we're left with 45, and it was 60, about 70,000 bucks. That's it. Yikes. So what you'll see here is we have deflation. So we needed 10,000 initially. It fell all the way 8,012 by the end of 1932, 20% decline. In 1973, we got 6.2% inflation. 1974, we got 11% inflation. So now our needs have jumped from $8,000 to $9,449. $9,449 on 75,000 bucks roughly is what we have in the account. No, less than 70,000 bucks. We're in a world of hurt. Thankfully, the stock market kicked back around at 38%, but doesn't matter because even though we're up 38%, we still needed $10,000 from the portfolio. So we're still negative for the year in terms of after taking money out the growth of stocks minus the portfolio return, we're still down at $1,600. Following year, we're up 24%, but again, it doesn't matter because we needed $10,906. So 24% return on $21,000 doesn't get us anywhere near the $10,906 that we needed, and so we're down. The next year, we're down 7%. So what's happening here is ultimately what happens is we run out of money right here in 1982. We ran out of money in 1982. But, oh my goodness, but it's 13 years, man. It's 12 years. No, it's 13 years. Let's see, let's just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We've had 14 years of income in the worst markets ever. Well, literally, this has never happened before, ever. 14 years of income in the worst markets ever. I think, if you ask me, and the likelihood of that happening again is quite small. It just is. But if you can survive that, you're doing fine. So let's say we took out, instead of 10,000 bucks, we're going to do $8,000. And I haven't done this. Let's see what it says here. So $8,000. We ran out of money. Let's just make sure we got the numbers correct. So let me pause it real quick. So here, if you just take a simple 4%, you ran out of money 2 years later in 1984, which would be, let's see, 29, 15 years. So you had 15 years of, actually 16 years of income. Again, in the worst case scenario, you ran out of money. Here you are running out of money if we had a 4% distribution as opposed to 5. I mean, if you ask me, that's pretty good. You got 16 years, something like that, of income with these worst case scenarios ever. That's not likely to happen, but it could. I mean, it literally never happened before. But if you can survive this, man, you are sitting pretty. Let's just say we took, I don't know, instead of a deflating amount, we're going to say we took, let's say 10,000 a year. You ready? Let's just do 10,000 a year out each and every year. We're not adjusting it at all. We're just going to say 10,000 a year out. And I mean, I bet you'll survive there just fine. Let's see what we're looking at here. Let's make sure we got the right numbers here. We're taking 10,000, 40. So let me pause it real quick. Here you still ran out right there. So here you ran out again in 1982. Again, another 14, 13 years, something like that, of income that you had. All right, let me pause it. Let's do 8,000 a year. We're not adjusting it. We're just saying that's what we're going to take. So pause it just a second. Took 8,000 out, which was initially 4%. Then we didn't change it at all. We ran out of money in 1993, which would be 105 minus 1990, 129, 27 years later. Now that's 8,000 a year on the front end. That's 4%. But relative to inflation, we're having deflation until let's see, we're having deflation into the first 4 years. Then we're having mass inflation. I get that, but the whole point was we're not getting any. I mean, look, this isn't realistic, but it just shows you, man. If it just was some basic planning, you could say we can make this work, Alice. You know, hey, Mom, we can make this work. Like they, whatever those old shows are. Alice, right? What was it? Alice. Alice is when she married to Mr. Brady. No, Alice was the housekeeper. What was Mrs. Brady's? I forgot her name. I forgot. Wait. Whoever that was, Alice was the housekeeper. Yeah. Either way, what I'm saying is, you're saying $8,000 a year. We're taking that's going to buy us more purchasing power on the front end, and we're not getting any interest at all on these treasuries, which was not true because back then we did get interest, 3.5%. We're to get 6 straight years of huge market returns. It never happened. That's never happened. I'm not saying it can't. Now, what's happening is at the end of 10 years, actually, this is really the end of, in the 10th year, we're getting 9.21. And then after another 10 years, we're getting another average yield from 84.93, which is 8.8. So we're still getting a decent rate of return on treasuries at that point. The markets have come back around, but we don't have that much in the markets left. That's the problem. That's the sequence of return risk. We don't have that much left in the markets. And then we're just getting, then we get hammered. Now, $8,000 back then, after the high inflation, might not buy you that much. I don't know. But it's a good way to say, look, if your dollars are spending is going down because you're getting older, which this would be representative. You just don't spend as much as you age. So again, if you can survive this, my friends, you are in a good place. I just want to show you again here too. And this is starting in 1929. Again, the negative years of 4 straight negative years, the worst time we've ever had in the markets ever. Followed by a decent year, followed by a negative, followed by 2 decent years. And here we had our money, and this is at $10,000 a year. $10,000, 5% a year withdrawal, adjusted for inflation. Here we ran out in 1981. So that money kept us from 20 years. Given the worst markets, starting with the deflation of the 1929-30, 4 straight horrific sequence of return risks, followed by the huge inflationary of the 73, 74. Even now we had our money for 20 years. I just, look, I'm just saying at the end of the day, if you can survive these 2 things, and that you didn't survive there, don't get me wrong. You did not have your money lasting 30 years. How many people actually live in retirement for 30 years? All right, that just, not that many. Not that many people do. If you're a 65 years old today, married couple, there's a 40% chance that one of you are going to live until you're 90 or something like that. That's not half. That's not the majority. That's not the vast majority. That's less than a majority. If you're married today, there's, I think, like a 40% chance one of you are going to live until you're 90. That's not 30 years. That's only 25 years. Now, so just deep breath and get planning. And don't overlook the equity in your home. I'm not even using equity here. So I'd love to hear your comments. We'll see you.